good responsible gaming should be an extension of customer service. It should never take away from your bottom line. I know that's the stigma, but investing in good responsible gaming means that there's less people harmed, and people being harmed isn't a good story, and that certainly hurts profits. You don't want customers to burn out because they're not exhibiting good behavior. So I think as long as you have good internal communication programs of knowing what resources are out there, what partnerships you have with your regulatory body, that's a great start, but really embracing it because it is something that is good for business and it is customer service. And we're saying we're committed and we're having information seminars on our casino floor, or we're putting the 1-800 number on our website. That's a start. And I think that's where the ball starts to roll down hills. And it's where third-party companies like ours get to go to operators going, hey, you're saying you're doing this, but we're actually giving you a really good tool that's going to be more helpful. It's going to go above and beyond standards of compliance, but this really is the next step. If we care about growing the industry in this post-PASPA world, we're going to have to start looking at solutions.
Welcome to the No Line Podcast, the podcast dedicated to responsible gaming. Hosted by Philip Beer. No Line is the podcast where all bets are even. We play no favorites. The best bet is the responsible one. Here's our host, Philip Beer.
Hello and welcome. I'm Philip Beer, host of the No Line Podcast, the podcast dedicated to responsible gaming. Today's guest is Conn from One Comply. September is Responsible Gaming Month, which means we are featuring a series of podcasts about responsible gaming, including past episodes that were top downloads. This episode is with Conn. He has worked for over 15 years in the industry, including casino design, gaming operations, customer development, revenue generation, and iGaming. This episode is a replay of a popular past episode, so here we go again with Conn. Before we get started, do you or your organization have a responsible gaming story you would like to share? You may reach out to me directly at philip@nolinepodcast.com, Philip with one L, at nolinepodcast.com. Let's get started. Today's guest, Conn. Cameron, welcome. I provided a short intro to you. If you could please share more about your background and experience.
Hi, my name is Conn, and I'm the co-founder of Conn Technologies, which is the creator of the responsible gaming solution GameSecure. We partner with operators and regulators in the U.S. market to allow for real-time self-exclusion database checks, whether it's in an individual state or state to state. Really, our goal is to support the commitment of players who are identifying themselves for self-exclusion and making sure that there aren't loopholes. There's not ability for them to fall through the crack to continue to self-inflict harm. And we started this company based on my partner and I, Yasmin's experience in the gaming market. I've been in the gaming industry for 15 years. I'm also a third-generation casino owner based out of Las Vegas. So gambling is in my blood. I want to find solutions that are going to support this industry that's been so important to my family and make sure the longevity and safety of it continues to grow as the industry expands west in this post-PASPA world, both within bricks and mortar and the online gaming space.
Cam, some of those listening are going to say third-generation casino owner. They're going to wonder, tell us more about that.
Yeah, my grandfather was a gentleman named William G. Bennett, and he had bought Circus in the 1970s and was really a pioneer, I think, of one of the major leaps of taking Vegas from, this sexy kind of place that you go with the guys and drinks and cocktails to more family orientated. And so he really was a pioneer of driving a different clientele to the Las Vegas market. My mother, following in her footsteps, started Paragon Gaming in the late 90s, focusing on First Nation casinos and Native American casinos in both U.S. and Canada. And so I'm third generation and worked for my mom's company for a very long time. Was very proud of that. And, broke out on my own to start Conn. And I just thought I had good ideas in the market and wanted to see those through.
And also for those listening, just to be clear, Conn is GameSecure.
It is, yes. It's the parent company. I think when you start something, especially when it's one of your first companies that you've ever started, You don't know if the name's going to stick, so we didn't want to incorporate under GameSecure in case we didn't get the patent or the trademark or something happened. So we called it BenConn, which is my last name is Conn and my family's last name Bennett put together.
And GameSecure. Tell us more about GameSecure.
GameSecure it was an idea that really came from my experience, my partner Yasmin's experience in the bricks and mortar space of understanding how well or not well self-exclusion programs worked in the physical space, and with the really growing industry in the U.S. of online gaming, where was self-exclusion going to go? And from a bricks and mortar standpoint, how many times did I see someone literally don a wig and sunglasses and try to sneak back into the casino that they had just self-excluded from? What were we doing to protect users from a digital kind of side? And through our investigation, realized that there was loopholes. There was timing holes between when someone was identifying themselves as wanting to be self-excluded to that information being laid from the operator back to the regulator, from the regulator then back to the operator manually putting it into the CRM to make sure that through the onboarding process, this customer couldn't get access. And so seeing from an individual state, wow, there's a lot of problems where someone can slide in. There's a lot of manual input and human error that could happen in this process. And then what are we going to do when a border state launches online gambling and someone can then just drive across this border and start gambling even though they had self-excluded in a neighboring state? And so we really looked at, where's the industry going to eventually kind of get in trouble? And that's really where GameSecure came from, was this idea of the industry wasn't going to centralize its list of addicted players or problem gamblers or self-excluded players. Every state was going to kind of look after themselves. And how could we create a database and a check system that would allow an operator to do a real-time self-exclusion check against a player that was either registering or signing in, much like we use geolocation to say, are you in the right state? And instead of saying, are you in the right state, it's really saying, should this person be allowed access, and providing a real-time pass-fail back to that operator. We wanted to create an insurance policy that you never had to actually file for, because you couldn't break the system. It was all real time. It was all a real check of player information. And that's what we've come to market with, is providing operators this liability insurance of going, if you use GameSecure and someone has self-excluded, whether it's in your home state or in a bordering state, we'll make sure that they don't get access to content and create additional further harm.
How are you identifying the customer?
Well, the good thing is that the industry already does it. It's just not done in the most streamlined way, or at least communicated in the most streamlined way. So if you are registering for any online gaming site, you have to go through KYC, which is Know Your Customer. And that's the process that a player is going through to actually create their account. So they're sending in their personal information, their social security number, and their address. And there's a fact check that is happening to say, is this person who they say they are? And so that creates this profile. Just like that profile is allowed to then give access to that customer in that state gaming content, it also creates their ability to say, I don't want to gamble anymore. And so on a operator site, they can kind of close their account or suspend their account and say, I want to self-exclude in the government program for the time periods allotted by that state. Or they can go directly to the state and do their KYC onboarding and self-exclude them there. So the operators and the regulators are already validating that information. We're getting a duplicate set of that information. We're just making it accessible in real time.
Why is it not being done already?
I think you had regulators that were looking at, models that already existed around the world. They were trying to get something to market. And then you had operators that were trying to live within the regulatory infrastructure that was designed, and they weren't looking for a solution. They were looking for good policy, and people weren't trying to be innovative. They were trying to be protective, and they were saying, we need to have responsible gaming. We need to have these programs, and self-exclusion should be one of them. And if someone signs up on your site, send that information to us. we'll put it into our database, and then we'll share it with everybody. That seems like a pretty good program. You guys get the information, and then you build it into your CRM. And it is a very small part of the entire infrastructure of a state releasing iGaming framework. And it was just people accepted that there was a 72-hour grace period from when someone said they had a problem to when they were actually shut off to every single site. And when you have a young state like, say, New Jersey that has just launched 2013, everyone's trying to get market share and everyone's trying to get profit, and nobody's going to be looking for a solution to streamline the communication of data of self-excluded players when they fall into regulatory compliance. Hey, we're compliant. We don't need to do anything more. We need to go get more market share for our stakeholders. And so it's just never been a priority. And we don't really expect it to be a priority for one operator to solve this solution for the entire industry. And that's where third-party companies like us come in.
Tell us more about the assurance that you give in regard to the exchange of data.
We wanted to use the least amount of data as possible. As a third party, we didn't need someone's address. We didn't need to know their physical attributes to be able to do a check. And we wanted to streamline that for efficiency. And so based on someone's social security number and their date of birth, those two data points is really all we need to go, does someone exist in a database or not? And it's a process of either using an API to ping a database like it is in Pennsylvania, or actually getting information directly from the regulators and operators like it is in New Jersey. We're just taking these small data sets and building out our real-time database and making that kind of ping. So we're not exchanging information. We're not using that information only to fact check, does this person exist in this database? And if they do, they're self-excluded and they shouldn't get access to content.
Let's go back a second. You initially mentioned that there were examples of those who would self-exclude and then go back into a casino with a wig and sunglasses.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think that was so very telling is, responsible gaming, it's kind of branded itself of saying, hey, here's our core values, here's our help center, here's a website, and it's all kind of very general and almost kind of generic. And what I realize is that the profile of a customer that self-excludes or tries to break their exclusion is anything but general. And it's anything but a generic person, because you had all walks of life, that were self-excluding and trying to break it as well. My role was an executive of customer development, so I knew the very high-end VIP players that were, gambling $500,000 a night. But I had a relationship with the smaller players and the penny players and the $5 blackjack players. And so I got to see their reaction and their reasoning for self-excluding. That really highlights that the more information we can understand about the customer and tailoring a very specific information content in regards to responsible gaming or addictions health or post information or hotlines is going to be the better, because there's not a one-size-fits-all solution for helping someone deal with problem gambling behavior or addiction.
At the present moment, is it up to the customer to self-exclude, or do you have predictive analytics in place that can flag a customer that may have a problem gambling?
The predictive analytics exist. It's not part of our business model. We deal very much in the black and white. We try to boil down the company and the solution to the really rawest form of a black and white decision, and that's making a decision to self-exclude. Because one, it's not always a very easy decision to make, but if someone does have the guts to go, you know what, I shouldn't be doing this, whether I'm just showcasing some behavioral problems that probably aren't healthy, or I really do have a problem, if they're raising their hand, if they're identifying themselves as I have a problem, the least we can do as an industry is make sure that that is ironclad, and that we don't let them slip through the cracks. The predictive analytics is great, and I think we're going to learn a lot more about that customer, but sometimes it's very objective. Wow, this user is really clicking the bet button faster than they normally would. Maybe that's a sign of some problem behavior. Or maybe he has to go to his kid's soccer game in 5 minutes and he's just trying to get through his hands and he wants to leave. We don't know that. But if we can take objective information and we can tie it to a black and white data point like self-exclusion, now we have something to anchor it on. So does someone who performs this type of behavior end up self-excluding? Yes or no? Now we can start to formulate some better stories off of some of the predictive analytic data that's being created.
You've mentioned that there are those who are making claims to being committed to responsible gambling. In making those claims, what do you feel is very critical to support those claims, if it's an operator or any other stakeholder?
What I think it honestly is, and I don't necessarily knock the industry for doing it, because I think it's at least a hell of a good start, because we're talking about it and we're saying we're committed and we're having information seminars on our casino floor, or we're putting the 1-800 number on our website. That's a start, and I think that's where the ball starts to roll down hills, and it's where third-party companies like ours get to go to operators going, hey, you're saying you're doing this, but we're actually giving you a really good tool that's going to be more helpful. It's going to go above and beyond standards of compliance, but this really is the next step. If we care about growing the industry in this post-PASPA world, we're going to have to start looking at solutions. And I don't think ostracizing individual operators is the best way to go. I think people know what they're doing is PR, and what people are doing is for real. But I think this is the start of the growing, I hope, of what's going to be good, implementable strategies, tactics, solutions, etc.
How would an operator align with GameSecure?
Basically what it is it's an agreement that would allow us to integrate our API that goes through their user onboarding flow. And really that's the commitment, is saying, yeah, we want to do a check not only against our own CRM, but against GameSecure's database that is in real time for players within a state. We have the ability to take it further, going, if you're in New Jersey, do you want to take a player that's in Pennsylvania that signed up for self-exclusion? We have that ability to now connect those states as well. So it's literally it's a commitment from that operator going, I want to go above and beyond, and it's a very small integration of our API into their onboarding structure.
And for GameSecure, you have been in the planning process and development process for quite some time. How close is GameSecure to being in the marketplace?
I think with our development partners, that's what we're hoping to get here in the next week. It has been a very long process. We've always understood that what we're building isn't a rocket to space. We're not reinventing anything. It was the relationships that were going to make this project a reality. And that's the last 2.5 years have been cultivating those relationships and getting regulatory bodies on board and getting groups like the National Council of Problem Gambling on board to understand what we're doing. Because even at the end of the day, finding development partners or investors that want to invest in their time and money into responsible gaming isn't always the easiest sell. I'm not selling a product where I'm going to increase your revenue by 10. I'm not saving you efficiency on labor that's going to directly result in the bottom line. It takes a very long time, and it creates very special people to get on board to a project like this. So we're hoping by the time G2E rolls around this year that we'll have a product that will be ready to be implemented in the market.
And when operators align with GameSecure, it represents their commitment to responsible gaming. In the meantime, and before then, what could operators be doing to demonstrate their commitment to responsible gaming?
I think a lot of operators are doing exactly what is out there for them to. So once again, I would say I don't knock the operators or anybody for not doing enough, because I don't really know how much is out there that's tangible for them to kind of grab on from an ad hoc standpoint. And that's why I think you see more companies developing in-house programs. So I think as long as you're educating your staff of really what is responsible gaming and what the difference between responsible gaming and problem gambling is, I think knowing your resources, make sure that you're displaying those resources. Good responsible gaming should be an extension of customer service. It should never take away from your bottom line. I know that's the stigma, But investing in good, responsible gaming means that there's less people harmed, and people being harmed isn't a good story, and that certainly hurts profits. You don't want customers to burn out because they're not exhibiting good behavior. So I think as long as you have good internal communication programs of knowing what resources are out there, what partnerships you have with your regulatory body, that's a great start, but really embracing it because it is something that is good for business and it is customer service.
Cam, before we say farewell, any final thoughts to share with those listening?
I obviously thank you for the time, Phil. It's been great to kind of get to know you and what you're trying to do for the industry and spearheading it and giving a platform for guys like us, for companies, like GameSecure, to help us get to market and help us show that we can go above and beyond. And by doing so, we're protecting the longevity of this industry as it continues to expand westward in the post-passport world.
One final thing. What, if anything, imagine a big billboard as you're driving down the strip in Las Vegas. What would you put on that billboard related to responsible gaming, if you could put anything?
Yeah, I think what that billboard would read, if I could put it up, is that responsible gaming is a real thing that can be real impactful. And it's important for us to educate not only the industry, but the players as well, that you shouldn't be ashamed if you fall into this category, if you do have addictions problem or behavior problems, because the industry should support you. And we want people to come forward and learn more about healthier practices in gaming.
Thanks for listening to the No Line Podcast, hosted by Philip Beer. For a complete list of past episodes, visit iTunes or www.nolinepodcast.com. That's www.nolinepodcast.com. Interested in being a guest on the No Line Podcast or sharing your organization's responsible gaming story? Send an email to philip@nolinemedia.com. The No Line Podcast is committed to responsible gaming. The No Line Podcast is a Philip James Media production.